Welcome to the 10th anniversary of REIMAGINE 2021. Presented by Mousebelt. Coming up next.
Greetings, REIMAGINE. My name is Nathan Millard. I'm based here in Seoul, South Korea. I'm the CEO of G3 Partners. Thank you very much, Adam and team, for inviting me on today.
Hello and welcome to REIMAGINE 2021. This is our 1-year anniversary and our 10th edition of our conference. We host these events as part of our monthly series, bringing you nothing but the best projects, bright minds, and leaders in this space. We've been fortunate enough to invite many talented individuals and teams to come speak with us, providing updates, insights, and all the above that's happening in crypto. It's been 12 months of craziness, but we're happy to be here to kind of talk to our guests and have them participate. I'll be your host today, Adam, from the Mousebelt team, where we focus on early stage investments through our accelerator or provide development support to a number of growing projects, as well as education within the Mousebelt University program. Our main objectives and goals as a company, and not only as a company, but with REIMAGINE, this conference that we're hosting, it's easy. It's to increase adoption, use cases, and real-world applications, and educate you that's tuning in to watch this. So enough of me talking. We're very fortunate to have a community partner of Mousebelt for the Icon community. So we're glad to have Nathan Millard, CEO of G3 Partners. Thank you for taking time out of your day, Nathan. How you doing?
Thank you very much. Yeah, doing great. Thanks for having me on.
And where are you calling from? I'm based out of San Francisco. Where are you at?
We're on the other side of the pond. We're over in Seoul. I'm from the UK, but been based here for about 10 years now.
Nice. And we'll get into Seoul. A lot of things happening over there. We'd love to get your perspectives on kind of the tech scene there, the blockchain scene, the crypto scene, and we'll touch on that. But before that, we've had, over 500 speakers come through here, and everybody has a unique journey, fell down the rabbit hole of some sort. What's kind of your path into blockchain?
Right. So starts back in 2013, actually. Quite a while ago, we selected a company called Corbit. The name might be familiar to some people, which was one of the first Bitcoin exchanges here in South Korea. And we selected them for a program to bring Korean entrepreneurs to the US, to San Francisco, to showcase for investors. And Corbit was one of the teams that we selected. Honestly, we had no idea what the CEO was talking about. But he sounded really smart, and we thought there must be something here. So we took him over to San Francisco. He ended up raising a seed round in San Francisco, and Corbit was acquired for $80 million 2 or 3 years ago. Wow. So that was my first foray. I was not invested in Corbit, so I did not make a return. Then I bought around $20 worth of Bitcoin in a Bitcoin ATM in Seoul in around 2015. I spent $10 of that 20 on a beer that evening, and lost the rest with a phone. And then we supported Icon back in 2017, and that was really my first true introduction to the space. And we've been working consistently with Icon since around 2017. And I guess somewhat embarrassingly, I bought my first Bitcoin really just in the last few months, just as the market was tanking.
Yep.
So lost a bit, but I've got into the space a bit now, and I understand that this is a downtrend and things will pick back up again. So not too hard hit by the losses, and looking forward to the recovery.
Awesome. I know everybody has kind of the ups and downs. I too came in at around, or I didn't come in, but 2013 is when I came across Bitcoin. I was at the bank and I didn't quite catch on until like a few years later. Before we get into G3 and kind of like the blockchain scene, the communities that we're involved in, like you're in tech, but what does like now that you're in Bitcoin or you just bought some Bitcoin, like what are your thoughts on blockchain, like or Bitcoin? And obviously you've seen other tech. So like, is it impactful? Like, do you see it making a difference? Like, what are your thoughts? We've chatted with many people that come from various backgrounds. I was doing an interview today, and he thought, if it's not tangible, like you don't own it, and all these kind of misconceptions or perspectives on kind of what crypto and blockchain really is. Well, what are your thoughts, I guess, on but blockchain or crypto in general?
Sure. So even though I just recently bought my first crypto, I've been interested in blockchain as a technology for quite a while, going back to before we even started working with Icon.
Yeah.
And I'm not a technologist. I'm not an engineer, so I can't talk on a deep level about the tech. But
me too.
I do believe what a lot of people say, that blockchain could have a similar impact on the world, the way we do things, that the internet had. I really do believe this, and blockchain and crypto has been around now for over a decade. It's beaten many of the naysayers up to this point. Brand new technologies take time to adopt. It takes time for engineers to figure out what the use cases really are. And so I really do see a bright future for blockchain, and it's really positive to see major institutions beginning to take it seriously, beginning to see some genuine use cases. You're seeing increased interest from members of the public, and I think it's a fascinating scene, and I'm looking forward to being a part of it developing in the future as well.
Do you see any kind of trends between kind of the other tech companies that you've been involved with or have worked with in some capacity to what you see kind of in the blockchain space, like some of the startups or the founders, like, any similarities in kind of the two, I call it emerging techs, depending on the period of time, right?
So I guess a lot of the trends that you're seeing in the general tech scene are playing across into blockchain as well. There's obviously a huge amount of development in fintech generally, not just crypto. We're working with a company here in Korea that is one of the fastest growing fintech companies in Korea. And I think in some ways they have a very similar ethos. They want to simplify the banking system, if not replace it. They want to provide valuable financial services to people in the developing world. And I had a chat with their CEO just quite recently, and he was saying that for many of their younger users now, their company is these people's first interaction with finance. They're not going to a bank account to open a bank account. They're not getting insurance in person. They're doing it on a mobile application. And so that's kind of more traditional fintech in the tech space. But I think a lot of those trends obviously carry across into blockchain. There's major drives towards increasing efficiency, transparency in things with AI, for example, which has obvious similarities in the blockchain space as well. So yeah, absolutely. I think crypto and blockchain kind of plays in its own area a little bit. There are certainly differences between blockchain and the rest of the tech market, but there's also crossovers for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I just went into the bank the other day, and yeah, it's pretty quiet. I used to work at the bank, so just probably in the short period of time of 5 years since I've been out, And being in tech, I just see that the pace of innovation, it just moves so quick, right? Like I haven't been to the bank. I was at the bank and I was all like annoyed already, just standing in line and like there's two people, and I forget what I need to do, something simple, but I had to go in like very rarely. So it's kind of interesting. So what does like, how do you feel about like this decentralization and centralization? We're talking about fintech, we're talking about mobile, and now we're kind of getting into with this blockchain scene, this peer-to-peer thing, being able to transfer value, using your mobile phone, kind of what do they say, like self-sovereign, like your own bank and identity. Where do you lie in terms of like decentralization versus centralization and like operating in one of these spheres, or are you in the middle? Are you like full on?
I suppose quick answer is that I guess that I'm somewhere in the middle. I think that it's all well and good to think that people can have absolute sovereignty and operate entirely as their own island, but in reality we're all part of a society. And I think that I think that society at some level needs to be governed by rules to protect everyone. And if that means that some people can't become multi-billionaires, well, so be it. Yeah. I think that, and I think the balance at the moment actually isn't that far off. The blockchain, the crypto scene has developed extremely rapidly, with fairly limited, involvement from governments and such. But I think that there comes a time when mass adoption happens where there will have to be regulations to protect people and make sure that the individual blockchain companies don't run away with things and become rulers in their own way. I think it's good that there's fairly limited regulations right now. It allows the scene to develop quickly, but in the future, I think like anything else, there will be regulations that will be needed to control things.
For sure. And let's kind of get into G3, right? We kind of you just told us about your path, your journey into blockchain, kind of in the tech scene. You're out there in Seoul. What is G3 Partners, and what do you guys do? What are some of your goals?
Sure. So I guess the story of G3 starts a little before I founded G3. I got involved in the tech scene here in Seoul in about 2012. And for about 2.5 years, I was the most active blogger about the local tech and startup scene in English. And that was an amazing opportunity to meet entrepreneurs, interview them, write about what they're doing, their stories, how they got into entrepreneurship themselves. And it was very inspiring. And I guess at a certain point, I felt that beyond just writing their stories and helping them promote what they're doing through media, and also we organize big events as well, I wanted to get more involved in the day-to-day operations. And the area where I could add some value was in content and marketing. And so I founded G3 Partners in 2015, basically to help growth stage startups take their first steps internationally. So we help companies with content and marketing. We do a lot of websites, marketing brochures, help them identify customers overseas and connect with them, help companies with international fundraising, etc. We've been in operation now for about 6.5 years. Most of our clients are based here in Korea, and we're helping them with international expansion. But we've also worked with a large number of companies from Western Europe and the US, especially, take their first steps in Asia. And you mentioned trends a few minutes ago. I think obviously a trend that is having an impact on tech is Asia. I kind of ended up here a bit by accident. But I think that there's so much happening here. There's so much opportunity. And I feel really quite lucky to be here in the middle of it, here in Seoul as well.
What are some of the What are some of those strategies? We might have some entrepreneurs like looking here, and not to give like advice or anything, but it's kind of cool. You're assisting startups to come out of Asia, go international. What are some of the things we might have projects right now tuning in, listening, our community, your community as well. Give us some insight on like what that looks like. Like, obviously it depends on the product, but is it very difficult? Is it pretty easy with globalization, technology? Is it easier to kind of penetrate other markets? Like, just curious to know.
No, it's not. It's not easy. I often tell people, I often tell entrepreneurs who come and speak to us, who have grand ambitions of launching globally, whatever that means.
Yeah.
I tell them, you know how difficult it was to establish your company and launch your product in your own country.
Yeah.
Imagine trying to do that in another country. And you're telling me you're going to launch globally. So what, You're going to do this 150 times simultaneously? So I think, simple answer, international expansion is not easy at all.
Yeah.
And I think, there's so many reasons to why that is. But I think entrepreneurs underestimate the complexity of it. They underestimate the cost. Even simple things like if you want to go and speak to your customer here in Korea, you jump into a taxi and you're in their office in an hour.
Yeah. Wow.
If your customer is in San Francisco, it's not quite that easy.
Yeah.
And then if you've got one customer in San Francisco and one in Berlin, suddenly it becomes totally unmanageable. So I would tell startups, a lot of what we do is actually market research. To help companies identify which of all of the nations in the world is the one or the one or two that really does make sense for them now. We help them to identify who their potential customers and partners are in those markets. And in some cases, it's a different profile of person or organization than in their home market. We help companies figure out or answer some really important questions up front before they dive in and start doing advertising.
For sure.
Yeah.
Just from your experience, like I was always like, can you talk anything, just like a minute or two, on kind of emerging markets, frontier markets, various markets? Like, you've been in this, you've been in the game for quite some time. So like, do you see any trends there? Not to say that it's easier, but there's more regions now maybe to target or more geographically that there's more opportunity because of X, Y, and Z, just from market research that you've seen or your team.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. So I can talk a little bit about Asia, and I would imagine that other emerging markets are somewhat similar. I wouldn't say that emerging markets are necessarily easier.
Yeah.
But I would say that the opportunities are much bigger. Entrepreneurs should be trying to solve a problem. And when you've got lots of big problems to solve, there's obviously lots of big opportunities. I can give you an example of this fintech company that we've worked with here in Korea. They have just expanded into Vietnam. And there's a huge percentage of the population in Vietnam that doesn't have a bank account. So, if you're in the West and you're opening up a bank, you have to compete with every other bank.
Yeah.
If you're going into a market that does well, they have banks, but a large portion of the population doesn't have a bank account. What can you do to give these people a bank account? And the way that this company in Korea did it, their market entry strategy in Korea was peer-to-peer payments.
Yeah,
that made sense. In Vietnam, it's actually financial rewards for doing exercise. Now, if you're getting a financial reward, where are you going to put the money if you don't have a bank account? So, okay, well, we'll give you some money to do some exercise, and we'll give you a bank account as well.
Nice.
And you can download it from the App Store.
Yeah.
And so that was their market entry strategy in Vietnam. So and the way that they obviously the initial product they launched in Korea versus Vietnam was very different, but the goal was the same. The goal was to provide high quality financial services that made sense to the local population, and it's going very well. So for companies looking to do something similar to launch in new markets, really take an open mind. If you want to launch in Vietnam, you have to go to Vietnam and see what the problems are and see what you might need to do to modify your product slightly for that local market. Don't make assumptions that just because your product works in the US or the UK, that, you know, us sophisticated people use it, so they must see value in it as well. That's not true necessarily. So understanding what the problems are and trying to come up with a solution that really matches the local conditions.
No, it's not a one size fits all, and you're gonna have to adapt and evolve or innovate, kind of like, you know, where your target market is, who your audience is, and those are, you know, for those tuning in, those are kind of important aspects of you know, product market fit and like understanding your user base, because the little tweaks and adjustments, you know, can go a long way. So no, that's cool. Thank you for that.
Tell the difference between success and failure. It's simple as that. I mean, I've seen so many companies in the last 10 years, you know, huge companies, like Uber, Airbnb, you know, lots of big companies that have really struggled because they didn't provide a high quality service that was fit for the local market. And it doesn't mean creating something totally new, that would be silly, but modifying to fit local conditions really important.
And to talk about, like, specifically, you've been in Seoul now for a long time. What's that scene like there, kind of in your region? Obviously, you've been there for a while. You just mentioned it's pretty active. You know, you started out talking to a lot of, you know, startups, and now you moved on. What are you seeing there, and not only in tech, but is crypto growing there? There's a lot of potential growth. I know some projects and some teams, some investors that are in Seoul as well, but would like to get your thoughts.
So Korea is still quite undervalued, unknown, unheard of a little bit, which I think is a bit unfortunate. I mean, now things are changing, but when a lot of people you know, think of Asia, they think of China, Japan, you know, maybe India, Singapore. Korea is not usually in the top three, but Korea has produced the biggest smartphone maker in the world, Samsung. Korea has produced over the last few years, I think the current count is 10 or 11 unicorns, which places Korea, I think, 5th or 6th in the world. So ahead of some other much bigger, more established markets. You might be aware that Korea's answer to Amazon went public on the New York Stock Exchange just a month or so ago at $100 billion valuation, which is the second biggest US IPO from Asia since Alibaba. Wow. So and this fintech company that I'm talking about, they're worth $7.5 billion now. It's a 6-year-old company. So I think, Korea, no one knows this. And it's one of the things that I'm trying to change, because I think Korea deserves to be known. There's a lot happening here. Now I've obviously been talking about the tech scene, but also in crypto. There's a lot happening in blockchain. I mentioned Corbit, you know, one of the first Bitcoin exchanges founded back in 2012, 2013. Icon is one of the bigger projects here. And some of the bigger companies also have quite big crypto projects now. Naver and Kakao, which may be unknown names, but Naver is basically Korea's Google and Kakao is basically Korea's Facebook. Wow. And they've got fairly big, high-profile crypto blockchain projects. And I'm honestly not sure what the situation is right now, but at one stage, perhaps back in 2017, 2018, there and thereabouts, Korean investors, or there was more, I think Korea was ranked second or third in the world in terms of crypto investment volume.
Yeah.
So, for that first major bull run, a lot of that money came from Korea, which is interesting.
Did they ban it? Did they ban it at one point, and now they kind of released that ban? They lifted it. Is that right or no?
I don't think anyone knows.
Yeah.
So I don't think anyone knows, and a lot of people. There was a lot of activity, 3-4 years ago in the space, and a lot of people saw Korea as one of the leaders in some aspects of blockchain and crypto, perhaps mostly the trading side. But there was a hope at the time that the Korean government would see this as a big opportunity to really establish Korea as the leader, and they missed it.
Yeah.
They didn't want to stick their neck out and, embrace it. I think that many governments around the world, have been waiting for someone else to make a move. So, it's difficult to know what the exact regulatory situation is in Korea as it is anywhere else in the world.
Yeah.
But there, crypto trading is happening. Blockchain is, it's not illegal. There's not a big clampdown. The Korean government is watching the space, and I'm sure that they'll move when someone else does.
When you market a blockchain crypto company, is it any different than any other company, or is it kind of just case by case, and you're really just marketing a solution to a problem, regardless of what it is? Is there a difference in messaging? Is it a different profile, younger generation, more education? How do you guys play that, I guess, from the crypto side and just from a general side? Or there might not be any discrepancies there.
So I think there's two sides of the story. There's the fundraising side, and then there's the side where you're marketing to try to get people to use the product or service. Now, a lot of the marketing work that we've done was actually around the time when we were working with Icon back in 2017, 2018. And most of those efforts were around fundraising for projects. And raising money in the crypto scene. Looking back on it now, it was a bit nuts.
That's that ICO craze.
It was exactly the ICO craze, with airdrops and rewards, and companies raising tens of millions on who knows what. Now, not to say that it was bad or good, but that in terms of marketing, it was totally different. It was exciting. It was terribly interesting, and you had to adjust almost month by month. One month airdrops are the rage, and getting 1 million Telegram group subscribers was one of the key KPI, and the next month everyone decided no, that's a rubbish idea. Really interesting. In terms of marketing for blockchain projects, for customer acquisition, it's also different because a lot of blockchain companies are still figuring that out. They're still working on the use cases, the commercialization of the technologies they've developed, and that's also true for Icon. Icon has some reasonably solid cases now in Korea, some decent contracts and engagements with local big businesses like banks, but also the Korean government. So that it's good to see things develop, and I'm sure in time marketing for blockchain and crypto will be somewhat similar to the rest of the tech market.
And so you're the CEO of G3 Partners, but you're also part of the Iconist team. What I think it's like a critical kind of component kind of to the Icon community, what you guys do. Can you talk a little bit about, and you brought it up too, like you were part of Icon the last few years. You guys are a P-Rep? You were.
We were. It didn't work out so well for us.
For sure. No, it's that's kind of it's its own world in terms of maintenance, operations, marketing. It's kind of somebody else had like, hey, you want to run a node or validator? I was like, what was involved? Before we get involved elsewhere. It's a lot of work, but you guys play like I don't know, a critical component. You ironically, you interviewed us. Your team interviewed us like in the early days. Late 2017, early 2018. We were just a dev team at that time. We were doing a few things, but we were working on one of the first dApps, I believe, integrating smart contracts for on the Icon network, which was kind of cool. But can you talk a little bit about the Iconist and what you guys do and what are the goals there?
Yeah, of course. So this leads nicely from your last question about how to do marketing. A lot of companies had great ICOs and then disappeared.
Yeah.
And communicate. When people have given you their hard-earned cash, the least you can do is tell them what you're doing.
Exactly.
So, Icon, like many other projects, had this issue that they needed to be more communicative with their community. And so, we'd help them with their ICO, and it seemed like a fairly natural step to establish the Iconist as, I guess, an official news channel and communication service for the Icon community is basically what it was.
Yeah.
And so our goal was to, be fairly impartial, and just tell people what Icon is doing, what they're working on, what their progress is, also commenting on things like local regulations that could have an impact on Icon and the price of ICX. Really just a communication channel. And beyond informing people who are invested in Icon in some way, like you, we're also very keen to expand awareness of blockchain and crypto generally. I think at the root, both of those things are good things, regardless of what some people say. And I think they deserve, the public deserves to know what's happening in the space so that they have an opportunity to engage as and when it makes sense for them. So, and that's also our core mission as we've restarted the Iconist within the last month. Again, to communicate with the existing community and hopefully raise awareness beyond the Icon community and who knows, maybe beyond the blockchain space.
Yeah, no, definitely. And we're here to support your guys' team. We extended this invite and we obviously going to have you back for a few more events as we kind of roll these things out. But yeah, I mean, I think, and I've asked this kind of in all my interviews in terms of like the community, right? Especially in blockchain, it's pretty strong, engaging participation. Would you say like throughout tech, like blockchain is more community driven than kind of any other space like the AI or machine learning or just fintech in general? Like I feel in blockchain, the marketing aspect of whether it be articles, whether it be, Telegram channels, Discord groups, like there's so much engagement. And when you think of coders and hackers and engineers that are behind the computers, they may be like quiet, but they are pretty loud on the internet.
Right. It's an interesting question. And it's not one that I've been asked before or one that I've considered, but I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I was just been trying to think if there's any other industry or company.
Yeah.
There isn't. I mean,
no.
Who really goes on to Facebook and likes, the company that makes their jeans or their trainers, or, but if you're involved in or supporting a blockchain company, it's incredible, the community spirit around some of these projects. So yeah, it's totally different, and yeah, it's interesting. I mean, there's one one way that people are, I guess one reason people are so engaged is because they have invested in these companies. So, you know, there is that element. People want to know what's happening with their money, of course. But I think beyond that, you know, people in the space, there's a lot of passion. There's a lot of people working really hard to bring these opportunities to the mainstream. And, you know, that kind of passion and enthusiasm, it draws people in. So
you made me think actually too of why the correlation of maybe not completely, but the democratization of being able to get into these token projects. Like you said, you know, the community is really engaged. It can make you or break you, really. And there's a lot of you're held accountable. And you brought it up too a few years ago, like raising off of white papers, plagiarism, scams, frauds. And that was one of the reasons why we started our accelerator incubator program, was to like provide hands-on support for teams that were actually trying to build the tech, trying to deliver a product, trying to stick to roadmaps and the milestones, right?
Yeah.
But you brought up a good point too, that maybe there's a lot more people because you're able to get in at a more favorable, you know, you can buy the tokens, right? Anybody can buy the tokens. Yeah. Anybody can invest, and you have some skin in the game. You're definitely going to want to know, you know, where's your blogs, your tweets, your updates, your insights? Are you delivering? Are you under delivering and whatnot? So that's kind of an interesting point of why maybe it's so engaging with active participation, even on governance or DAOs. You know, people voting on rules and changes. And I just got a, you know, we just got like a proposal to kind of review. But yeah, you bring up a point there that I never really thought about, is that there's a lot more people on the masses that have some skin in the game, and marketing plays an important factor to know what's going on, because a lot of, you know, the supporters or community will definitely move on if you're not you know, providing content or whatever the case is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's very interesting. You know, the whole ICO craze was a bit crazy, and I think probably, I mean, that's maybe somewhere where, you know, some level of regulation,
yeah,
could be a good thing, because you don't want people to lose their house over a project. You know, the scammers should be put in jail, but you know, if you're a genuine project as well, you can't always influence the price of your coin, and you know, it's not fair for you or for the investor if they lose their house on your project. So yeah, I think it's good to have some level of control, but yeah, it's really interesting that anyone can get involved in these projects, and you know, maybe the power of the masses, the power of the crowd will help to push the scene forward as well. You know, for teams having these people, you know, asking them what's going on and perhaps offering support. You know, I think it's good overall.
Yeah, definitely. And kind of just to circle back with my original question was, you know, the Iconists and what you guys are doing. And
sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was just saying, you know, no, glad to have you guys back, you know, putting out articles. It's a great, you know, it's a great website, great informational stuff, educational stuff. And you guys do quite a few things with good interviews and a good team. A couple more questions here before we wrap it up. Like, you're talking about fintech a little bit. Are you following anything in DeFi? You know, fintech and DeFi, like kind of this new landscape. Do you follow anything in that sector? Not directly, but how do you feel about DeFi, I guess? And we're talking about fintech. We're talking about, you know, the unbanked. And I think a lot of us underestimate how many people are unbanked and how difficult it is to you know, get credit and all the things that we kind of not take for granted, but are accustomed to having in developed worlds and regions. What's your take on DeFi, since you kind of work within fintech projects and stuff like that in other countries?
Sure. So again, this, I think with anything related to blockchain and crypto, there's always two sides to the story. And I think overall, overwhelmingly, you know, most ideas are good ideas, as long as the implementation is is done in the right way. But in terms of DeFi, I mean, countries are adopting cryptocurrencies now. Major institutions are accepting them cryptocurrency as payment. Banks are buying in. So I think there's probably going to be a tipping point when the banks realize that, hang on a minute, we need to work with crypto, otherwise we're going to be stamped out. And who knows when that point will come? Maybe it's 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. But it seems like we're on that road, and I think that's going to be an improvement for everyone. Crypto is becoming genuinely a store of value, and I think people are beginning to understand why that is, even though the price is so volatile. Some of the benefits of DeFi is dramatic improvements in the delivery of financial services, improvements in transparency, reductions in cost, simpler, cheaper supply chains within the finance industry. And again, all of these things are good, and it's difficult to come up with an argument for why we should stick with the status quo.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting space. It's something that I'm still also very new to.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like I'm a little late to the crypto market, but then if you look at the grand scheme of things, 10 years from now, I probably will feel like I got in pretty early.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all perspective.
Yeah.
No, yeah. I mean, you brought up some of these, regions, right, where they have a cell phone and, better connection than I do here in San Francisco.
Right.
So it's kind of interesting to kind of see, what's going to happen coming up. And lastly, NFTs. Are you a believer in NFTs? That's kind of been the boom the last few months. We had a conference about that about 2 months ago. There's a lot of kind of ways to think about it, perspectives and opinions on it. Does it make sense? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But have you thought about it much, or is that something kind of not on the radar?
I'm aware of NFTs. I'm aware of the boom. I'm aware of the crazy money that's being won and lost, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm not terribly familiar with it. It's probably something that I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I don't know enough for right now, to be honest.
Me too. It depends. It depends on who you talk to and all that. But it just goes to show technology, right, is a disruptor in many aspects and will continue on. And engineers and developers, will find use cases, and we're still at kind of the infancy of what this is going to result in. Nobody, imagined Ubers or Airbnbs or Facebooks in the early 90s. The time will tell. But
I think something else as well. There's nothing wrong with coming up ideas that don't work.
Yeah. For sure.
I think it's great that there's. It seems like there's a new trend in the blockchain space every few months, and sure. If some of these trends fail, doesn't matter. It's pushing the industry forward. If you don't know what doesn't work, it's going to be a lot harder to figure out what is going to work. And most of the great tech companies, probably all of them, have made tons of mistakes along the way to success, and they're successful because they're willing to take risks and try crazy ideas. And if some of those fall along the wayside, it's not a problem. So with NFTs, I don't know. We'll see where it goes. If it doesn't work out, they'll figure out something else that does.
And I think going back to that statement you said, the risk and the failures, and like you said, the failures that do happen just gives opportunity for the other projects that are coming around to not do that and evolve and like tweak some things. And I feel like that's what's going on in blockchain in general, whether that's like the consensus, mechanism and the tokenomics, right, is just kind of being built off of what worked, what hasn't worked over the last, 3, 4, or 5 years.
Yeah. It's, I sometimes argue with people that there's actually no such thing as a failure in this broad technology industry. Maybe a project doesn't work out, doesn't get commercialized. Maybe a startup doesn't work out, but if people learn something from that experience and take that learning forward, they're going to be a more knowledgeable, better equipped person in the future. And for startups that don't work out, those founders will have invaluable experience that they can take forward in their careers. So yeah,
exactly. Exactly. So we'll go ahead and wrap it up here, Nathan. It's been a real pleasure to have your team kind of work with us. You wrote up some articles about us a couple weeks ago, just kind of about our communities and the interviews and highlighting some core team, core members of Icon, and it's been real great. And I see us obviously partnering along the lines. Where can people learn more about G3 and the Iconist?
Sure. So for G3, it's g3partners.asia is our website. We're on Facebook. We don't do so much on Facebook, but if people want to reach me directly, it's Nathan at g3partners.asia. The Iconist is the icon.ist.
Nice.
So, and again, we've just relaunched the Iconist. We are in the process of updating the website. We're still on course to get the new site launched by the end of the month. I'm pushing our designers like a slave driver to get that done on time.
Yeah.
So that will be upgraded very soon. And we really do encourage people to get in touch. We're on Twitter is our main one for the Iconist, so you can reach us there. Email address will also be on the website. But we really do encourage people to get in touch. We're always on the lookout for good stories. So if there's P-reps that want to talk about what they're doing, or others involved in the Icon community, we'd love to hear from them. And others who feel like they'd like to get involved in the blockchain discussion, give us a shout.
Awesome. Well, appreciate it. I know we've kind of gone a little over here. Everybody tuning in, this is Nathan Millard, CEO of G3 Partners, and one of the core members of the Iconists for the Icon community. We appreciate your time, Nathan. We hope to have, if not you back, somebody else on your team to share their insights, their journeys, just like we did today. And so we hope, we'll talk again soon. Everybody, thank you for tuning in to Reimagine 2021. We hope you enjoyed this discussion, and we'll talk again. Thank you.
Thank you very much.